Hey guys, just before we get into it, we would like to acknowledge our podcast partners in Beyond Blue.
If you're feeling low, anxious, or need to talk to someone, please contact the people at Beyond Blue. Their phone number is 1300 224 636.
You can visit them on the website as well at www.beyondblue.org.au/get support. Enjoy the episode.
Thanks, guys.
Hello and welcome to the Lystics AFL Podcast. I'm your host, John Van Norden. Here with me as always is my good friend, Sean Lewis. Sean, how you doing this week, mate?
Going well, thank you, John. Another week down. We've got another 9 games of footy played this weekend, which was one more than the weekend before, so we'll take that.
Not sour, mate, for the D's missing out on the game.
Oh, not at all. Didn't speak about it at all on the last podcast. Just completely happy and nah, it's all right, mate. We just get on with it, mate. And it's good. We got all 9 games down, so it's 9 more down this season, and 9 more closer to the finals.
Yeah, and we're going to have a little bit on that soon. Obviously, there's been some rescheduled games this weekend, but I just wanted to first again give a shout out to our partners at Australian Football Coach, the Australian Rules Management video game.
If you like football strategy, you'll love Australian Football Coach. It's the premier Aussie Rules coaching simulation. You get to build your list, you get to pick all your tactics and coach your team to the flag.
Yeah, I mean, you get to try and coach your team to the flag, but that's I guess you can say that.
Who won the Super Coach on the weekend, mate? Come on, we're going to go in this. Okay, we know I'm the superior coach.
Yeah, no, that's out on Twitter now as well. Yeah, you can find out more at AustralianFootballCoach.com or check out Australian Football Coach on Steam. I recommend going to the Steam website and sort of checking out some of the videos you can watch, like just previews of the game. You can probably do that at AustralianRulesFootballCoach.com as well. But it is good to sort of give you a bit of a flavour. So check out that, and I have hinted that we'll do a demo session as well where we talk a bit through the game because it's something that I'm pretty keen on and excited about.
And I think it'll be good because I'll finally once and for all we'll get to sort out who's the best coach, and we all know it's me. So
you are the better coach. We'll see about it in a simulation AFL section. But I can admit that you've definitely got coaching down pat. I don't know if you've ever coached a state sports team like some of us on the podcast have, but
yeah, well, I don't think you've ever coached a football team like the other person on the podcast has. So.
Hey, I was been an assistant coach. I'm pretty happy with that.
Cool.
I don't have any accreditations, so let's not go into that any further. I did want to talk about the rescheduled games this weekend.
How's about let's jump into a mental health minute, mate? You're just skipping straight ahead.
It's just because I am so disrespectful of your mental health. You know that. No, fill me in. Give me a mental health minute, mate.
Oh, mate, we can start with you since you're obviously in a good space. You can go for it, mate.
Yeah, I'm in a good space. I don't know. New turn of the financial year tomorrow, which is exciting. If not that exciting. Work has sort of picked up over the last couple of weeks, and it's funny how a little turn in fortunes like that can make you feel a bit better, just a bit more busy and needed. And I'm listening to some good books at the moment, reading some good books. I had a day off on Monday. That was part of everyone I now works at 80% capacity at the moment. So we have to take a day off a week. I took Monday and finished the rest of the Harry Potter books. I read them yearly now, all the way through. So I had a little tear up to myself, which was nice because to just read a good book, do some gardening and landscaping in a reasonable place and just sort of trying to continually think about, I think just focusing on your mental health and focusing on what's important to you and stuff like that does just sort of make you feel like you have some semblance of control, even if it is just creating a narrative around what's happening around you. How are you doing that, mate?
Yeah, look, I'm doing really well. I think, I had a really good chat to one of my mates who's unfortunately lost his job and stuff through COVID. He works in hospitality, and he's up in the hills, isolated pretty much by himself. And we had he's kind of one of the guys I try and check in with pretty regularly, just given that he's on his own, and especially when we weren't really allowed to, I guess, leave the house and go visit people. It got, you often think like, oh shit, it's a bit, you wonder how they're doing. So I'd always just pick up the phone and call. So it was good. We had a huge chat the other night, and it was really good just to have a really good and open, honest catch up, and hear, I guess, his perspective. He's an artist, so he's been keeping himself busy painting and everything in the shutdown. But I think it gave me a lot of good things to reflect on, and that's just the privileged position I'm in to still have a job and a wonderful family, and getting to spend so much time with my daughter, and how appreciative I am for that. But it also gave me a real appreciation for like that mental resilience, and you've just got to do what makes you happy. And it was really interesting talking to him, because he's a qualified tradie, and he's been, now that restrictions are slightly back, he's been doing a few casual jobs, filling in, trying to help out different friends and that sort of stuff. But I guess he doesn't really enjoy trade work, which is why he went back to hospitality. And just hearing him talk about the I guess, obviously needing money, so he's doing a skill that he's got, and he's happy to do it and everything. But he also knows it doesn't fulfill him, which is why he needs his art, and why he's looking forward to I guess the hospitality industry returning and that sort of stuff, and just really focusing in on he knows what makes him happy, and I really respect and love that. I think it's a really important lesson for a lot of us. Sometimes we just get caught up, thinking we have to do this because everything depends on it. And if anything out of this time that we've learned, it's that we're resilient, we're a community, we get through things together, and we just need to keep picking each other back up and checking on our friends and looking after each other, and we get through this together, and that's really, it was really good. It's a good week of reflection for me, and I've been really happy, and family's healthy, so everything's going well.
That's great, mate. I love a good week of reflection, where you have a couple of days that are really reflective, and then you spend some time over the next few days just letting it all marinate. Feels really nice, and I'm glad to hear that you're well as well. And that you're going out of your way to check in on your friends. It's always good thing to do. And I mean, unfortunately for Collingwood, looks like there was a couple of Collingwood players that went out of their way to check in on their friend Howie on the weekends after his injury, and are likely to cop a suspension for a couple of weeks.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's the Howie incident. I think it's the.
It's the stuff afterwards. I mean, I'm talking about that night though. They're going and seeing Howe, and then getting an Uber, which they're not allowed to do, and going and seeing people that aren't approved on the lists. It does sort of, when you read it, it gives you a good insight into how strictly they are taking this stuff, because it might seem quite innocuous to us, but it's against the rules. So be interested to see. I assume that Sidebottom will be suspended at the least. Potentially Dunn will be, but I'd assume it would probably be Dunn.
It sounds kind of similar to what happened with Spargo and
that's what I think as well. Done 1 week, Sidebottom maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's well, I mean, look, given the state of Victoria at the moment, it's absolutely necessary that if we want to have a hope of having crowds at football or having football back here, we need to. The AFL players need to take it as seriously as everyone else. Even more seriously.
I mean, we've already been told by the Queensland government that Victorian players weren't going to be allowed into
and South
Queensland
Australia as well.
Yeah, and South Australia. I mean, it directly affected the Queensland games this week against West Coast. Queensland game against West Coast, silly season. But that's seen things be reshuffled. So the D's are now playing. What are
Richmond.
the D's now playing? D's
Richmond.
are now playing Richmond. That's right.
So yeah, it was
West
basically
West Coast playing Sydney, and Carlton St Kilda has been moved forward to the Thursday night game.
correct. Yeah. So
Yeah,
look, I think this is a really good. Last week we said the AFL's really got to act on this flexibility, and they've done it this week. So
yeah,
kudos, well done AFL, absolutely using the flexibility, and I'm sure they'll argue that the ability to bring Carlton and St Kilda forward off what will now be 5-day breaks.
yep.
In part they'll say that that's due to the shortened game time, but that's probably ignoring the fact that Collingwood, Essendon, and Melbourne and Richmond have played several Anzac Day or Anzac Day Eve games off 4-day breaks at full length.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
it gives them the flexibility to run tighter schedules and move things around, because the clubs would have been doing different things on different days if they'd known that they were playing on Thursday. So I understand all of that, but I found it interesting listening to the commentators complaining, BT especially on the weekend, saying, do we really need this long between breaks? The players want to get back out there and everything. Is there any extra benefit to it? And we're going to see this weekend, really. We're going to see if the additional rest that players are getting, the shorter games, the fact that there's longer between quarters, all of that stuff, whether it's actually going to add up into players that can turn around the game more quickly.
yeah, absolutely. But I think it will naturally.
Yeah.
I think probably where we're going to see the true impact of this flexibility will be if we have multiple instances of this over the rest of the season, and towards the back end of the season, we'll definitely be able to have a look at the injury tolls and that sort of thing, and understand, I guess, how this flexibility has enabled or hindered. I guess we won't be able to make that evaluation until the end of the season, but I guess the logic
Yeah.
is that you shorten the games, potentially reducing that risk of injury. So I mean, the logic isn't flawed. Who knows what happens in reality, considering
Yeah.
players
It
have been
makes
conditioned for long games.
Yeah, it makes sense what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
And I think we have to, I think that everyone in the footy community just needs to get on board with this season being different and weird. And it's if we want footy, otherwise we won't have it at all. I mean, it's a bit like I was talking to you earlier. So New South Wales has been floated as the next location for a hub.
makes sense.
It does, and it sort of coincided with an article, some comments from Cochin today, that some of their players, it's a very strong likelihood. Well, he's called it a strong likelihood. I think he was more meaning possibility, that there would be players that wouldn't leave Victoria for a hub arrangement. I mean, I found that a bit. It was like when I heard West Coast saying it earlier in the year. There were some players that were sort of complaining, saying they don't know if they'll come. They have other things on that are in their home state. Um, and look, it hasn't gone well for West Coast because of that attitude. And unfortunately, I think this is the year where people need to prioritise. And if that priority is playing AFL, then that's what it is. If that priority is being a parent, some of them have got kids on the way and things like that. They just need to make that decision and sort of stick with it. I don't think that there's point arguing about it.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I'm sympathetic. Like I look at a player like Jack Viney, who's got a less than a 1 week old baby daughter, and I can put myself in his shoes. And it's an incredibly important and incredibly full on time, with a fresh baby. So I mean, if Melbourne was facing the prospect of going into a hub next week, it would be a very, very difficult decision for Jack, and not one that I would wish upon him. But I also think that we need to. Yeah, this is the hard part. You can empathise and sympathise, and you can understand people's positions, but at the end of the day, football is trying to keep rolling, and football as an industry supports a lot of jobs as well. So
Yeah,
the non-playing, if basically enough players sit out that you can't take on the season, it's gonna hurt a lot more people than just the players. And
Yeah.
I think that's the wider scope that has got to be assessed. So, like you said, I think as a community, we need to accept that some people have difficult circumstances in their life. There are some AFL players who have caring responsibilities for parts of their family. There are, as highlighted, people like Jack Viney with really young kids, and even babies on the way and that sort of thing. So if a player chooses to sit out, as has been flagged, I think as a community we need to just be understanding and let them sit out. And not ridicule, but I mean, I think we just have to accept that some players won't be willing to make that sacrifice. But as long as the larger majority is willing, I think we just continue.
Yeah, I think that's what his comments were sort of saying is too. He was saying that there are a genuine chance of not leaving Victoria, and there's a lot of different cases, guys with pending babies, and they'll just have to manage that accordingly.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like, I don't know whether he's asked a question directly. It's always hard with these sort of interviews, which are just highlighted for certain comments, whether he's asked a direct question or anything like that. But I just feel like it's not necessarily something we need to spend time and energy talking about. I think we just need to understand that this season is going to have a lot of flexibility. There's always AFL players that sit out games to see the birth of their child. This might mean that people sit out 2 or 3 games because they need to be there. They can't isolate 3 or 4 times traveling for games and things of that nature. So,
and you're spot on. I think that's the perfect way to look at it. Is that there are people who miss for family reasons, quite a lot. Everyone was shocked last weekend that Josh Kennedy played after the passing of his grandfather, and that really, it's that kind of compassion we need to show, but to the other side of it is, the footy's got to go on. So providing that your team's able to field a side, so you've got 44 players on your list, so as long as 26 of them can run out on a weekend, footy continues. And if your better players have to sit out for whatever reason, then unfortunately that's just the case. And as fans, we're going to probably hate it, but we just need to be understanding that this is having an impact on everyone. I think it's a real tough one, but I mean, I think probably more to Trent Cotchin's comments, I don't think they're needed. I think, I think drawing attention to this is just going to bring out a bit of vitriol, and especially considering the sacrifices that 4 clubs have already made, and no one has sat at home. I know a few of the players took their families across, and that sort of thing. But I think it's really important that you don't come across in a way that's ungrateful. The sacrifices that players have already had to make for this season, and that's the risk of a comment like that.
That's sort of what I thought. I think that we just need to, like, I can't, as I said, I can't tell whether he just got asked a direct question and tried to give an honest answer, which is highly possible. But I think given the way that we already know the season is going, we just need to avoid talking about it and just say, don't comment on the fact that people might not be there. Just comment on the fact that we expect that we're going to go up there, and if we have to go into a hub, we'll do our best. Spin it. Let's just not talk about it. As I said, it's something that's getting me frustrated as a footy fan because I don't like the idea that people might sit out. Although I'm fine with the idea that they sit out. I don't like the idea that they're talking about sitting out because it's some sort of veiled threat. When you bring it out to the public, we're going to have a whole lot of stars that won't play. Maybe don't make us go into hub kind of thing.
Yeah, and that was the attitude. I think, we were talking about it this week on some chat groups, and, you and I early on said hubs, and I was pretty adamant hubs were the only thing that made sense to me in this sort of environment where you could bubble for 6 weeks at a time. And then, the obvious kickback from the players was, we don't want to do it. And then there was a relaxation of restrictions, which enabled the AFL to manage it a bit better. Now we're at the reality where the place where 10 clubs are based, which is Melbourne, obviously. And for the sake of this conversation, as the Queensland government has clarified, Geelong is considered a part of that. And 10 clubs is over half the AFL, so we can't really continue, and it's the biggest market as well. So we can't really continue the season without the clubs. So players now are in the place where there's going to have to be some sacrifices, and hopefully I'm sure most players are more than willing to sacrifice and respond to and respect what West Coast, Fremantle, Port Adelaide, and Adelaide have done for the sake of the competition. So it's been really I think we'll get to a positive outcome, and just
agree.
hopefully Trent's comments aren't taken out of proportion, and the vitriol's directed at any player who does choose to sit out. Everyone's got their own reasons, and I don't think we're here to judge.
No, completely agree, mate. And I mean, sort of the major thing we want to talk about this week. We're just sort of touching on a couple of smaller topics this week, but we'll get to a longer episode, I think, in our Adelaide reflections. The thing I wanted to talk about mostly this week was just some comments that our good friend Clarko made after the narrow game, the narrow win the weekends. Was just the comments about Payne holding the ball faster, and it was a bit ridiculous that his club made 78 tackles and none of them were holding the balls. I mean, it sort of went up a level the following day when Gill came out and said, I don't agree that the state of the game is bad, but I do agree that we should be paying prior opportunity faster. And it sort of gave me an idea just to talk about it a bit further on the podcast and actually start reflecting on some of these things, because we do need to you do need to pay attention to people that are key within the game. Clarko is one of those people. Gill is another one of those people. Someone who's not one of those people that decided that they should also add to it. And probably, again, I'm being unfair because he was probably asked a direct question about it. But there was an article today saying Tom Scully believes that the AFL hierarchy should listen to Clarko's concerns about the way footy is played. Probably don't need to listen to Tom Scully. Tom Scully, in that situation, is a direct beneficiary of Clarko's game plan, being an outside running, left-footed, silky kicking, uncontested player. So getting the game on and having more uncontested marks and less congestion works for him.
Yep.
But definitely when we're talking about key stakeholders in the game, I think that Clarko and Gill are worth listening to. I'd be interested in what you're sort of thinking about. I'm going to ask you a couple of different rules that have been floated this week by different stakeholders, one by you, and sort of talk about what you're thinking. So paying the holding the ball faster, what are your thoughts?
Look, I mean, I think there's a new interpretation on incorrect disposal. Dropping the ball to me. Maybe I grew up playing Auskick very simply, but I just think that, if it's not knocked out in a tackle, and I know that's hard to adjudicate, but if it's not knocked out in the tackle, despite a player attempting to get rid of it, I don't really care about the attempt. If he hasn't disposed of it correctly, it's incorrect disposal to me. So that's one that's probably annoyed me a bit this year. Watching it is that players in tackles who are holding the ball out and can't quite get their arm, and then they just kind of, the ball ends up on the ground, and it's next scrum is the kind of result. So I mean, just if the ball hasn't been hand passed or kicked by that player and it hasn't been knocked loose as a part of the tackle, as the player wraps his arms around, he knocks it out. It's incorrect disposal. Pay a free kick, get on with it.
Yeah, I agree that it definitely needs to. I am of the opinion that if you pick up the ball and are tackled in the same motion, that you don't have prior opportunity. But there's way too much of people assessing the tackle, like picking the ball up, being probably half a second away from a tackle, seeing it front on, and deciding I'm going to just get tackled and take the stoppage, which I think shouldn't be allowed. That's the kind of thing where you have time to release the ball, you've taken clean possession, and all football players can receive a quick ball and put the ball into their hands or onto their feet within a second. So those are the ones that I think just need to. You've made a decision to take the tackle, and that should be a free kick.
Yeah. I think that
Go.
I think it's just that what you're saying. Like when it's decision to take the tackle, it's it really prior opportunity is an interesting thing because it's it's this whole interpretive dance that we have. What's prior opportunity? He had half a second. There was a couple of great examples on the weekend where there were players who got swung full 360, but because they kept their feet and their opponent was dragging their jumper on the ground, they were allowed to, literally ride the tackle for 5 seconds.
Yeah, I know,
and
that was stupid.
And then on the other hand, there was, I think, in the Fremantle game, I think it was, I'm going to say it was Nathan Wilson, I think, from memory, who literally, the ball hit his chest, he took one step, got tackled and paid holding the ball. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like that, there's no prior opportunity. He didn't drop the ball. He just got tackled immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, and that's the problem with prior opportunity is that you're introducing these interpretations.
Yeah.
So it just needs to be clear. Like, if you have more than 2 seconds, 1, 2, and you fail to release the ball, that's it. If you make it as simple as like something like that,
yeah,
you can't argue.
I agree. Yeah, I think that you could, like, even 1 full second. Like most umpires would be able to mentally see a player go pick up the ball and say to themselves 1, and then just before they get to 2, blow the whistle. That's holding the ball if they get tackled at that point.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure 1 second. I think I remember. This is going to be funny. It's going back a while. I think that my memory of in under 19s football was the umpires used to run off a 3-second thing for under 19s, which at AFL you could probably compress to 2, but 1 is
no, you're right. My understanding of how long 1 second was probably about 2 seconds. So
well,
it's all good.
when you consider that put it in perspective, the very best catch and release basketball shooters still need half a second to catch a ball and release it for a shot.
Yeah.
You're effectively asking someone to, do the same thing, but you can't throw the ball. You've got to hand pass it. So.
Yeah, and it's multi-dimensional as well. Like basketball, Correct. Is it up and back, but you're never going to get tackled from behind. The boundaries are much closer.
Yeah.
One of the things that's annoying me about the holding the ball rule, and this is to do with the amount of free kicks that get paid for tackling someone that doesn't have the ball. This is a rule that I think needs tightening up as well, just because at the moment I saw it. I can't remember which player it was, but it was in the Giants Collingwood game. It could have been a player from either side. I have a feeling it was Brett Daniels, but it could have been a player from either side. I saw them deliberately not pick the ball up, like as in they were in a contested situation. They had the opportunity to pick the ball up, and all they kept doing was putting their hands on the ball and taking it off really quickly, hoping, I think, that they were going to get tackled, and then they would be able to throw their hands up in the air and get the free kick.
Yeah.
And I think the umpires need to start being, if anything, looser on that rule. It's not if a player, for me, it doesn't have to be necessarily if a player has taken possession, as in they've got clean grab on both hands. But if a player is fully in the contest and the ball is theirs, like they haven't maybe even taken possession yet, but they're guiding possession down, you should be able to knock and bump that person off the ball without repercussion, because some of the tackles that continue, like a player is half taken possession, they get tackled, then they just drop the ball and the player doesn't know that they've dropped the ball, they continue the tackle and they get a free kick for that.
Yep. Look, I think I think what did they used to say? You're over the ball is the phrase. So I think probably to give some praise, I've really enjoyed the dragging it in. But then there's also the manipulation of it where a player might be on the ground and then someone comes over the top and scoops it into them, which frustrates people. And I just think that in that case where where an opposition player scoops it back in, you just have to call it ball up, but then that's implying the umpire can see it. So I think, I really do enjoy, it's a Lee Matthews one, that one. You shouldn't be able to play the ball on your knee, or you shouldn't be able, if you take the ball into your possession when you're on your knees, it should just be, free kick immediately, no prior opportunity, because you've basically done that to try and slow the game.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting way of saying it.
Yeah, well, that was Lee Matthews, I think just after he retired from Brisbane. So
okay,
we're talking over a decade ago. So
that's good. Keep your feet. So there was 3 rules that were suggested by our good friend of the podcast, Matthew Lloyd.
Lloydo. Yep.
Yeah, one of them you talked about during this week. Two of them were sort of new things that have been floated for a couple of years. His first one for reducing congestion and improving the way the game is played is to increase 15-metre kicks to 20 to 25-metre kicks, depending on what the interpretation is. This for me is an easy one that I just agree with. I think that 20
I'm happy with 20 metres, yeah.
20 metres I think is good. 25's pushing it. You're starting to get half of the 50, then you can't do short passes effectively inside 50. You have to, if you get the ball inside 50, you have to have a shot or kick it to the top of the square. That doesn't make sense. But 20 metres, I think it's much easier to adjudicate than this 15 metres. 15 metres is such an awkward number to measure. There's plenty of 10-metre kicks that get paid as marks, and there's plenty of 10 to 15-metre kicks that could be 15 metres that get called play on. I just think 20 makes it really easy. It's very easy sort of measurement to make mentally when you're sort of looking at the 50-metre arc. You just 2/5. You don't even have to think. So that was an easy one. I think that'll improve it. This next one was his final one. I'll release your one last. Was his final one was backward kicks a play on.
No, doesn't work. Proved it in VFL.
Yeah, I agree with this. Backward kicks a play on is a different game to AFL. I think that part of the strategy is that you can switch the play, and you stop being able to switch the play, which congests play further if you don't allow people to kick backwards.
I think it's just that one feels like a knee-jerk reaction to Melbourne versus Geelong on the weekend. I think in general, when you look at most games and you exclude that, and you look at most games, the kick backwards is often a switch. And I would be interested to know what the actual statistic is of players kicking backwards to not playing on.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at the GWS Collingwood game, it wasn't that high scoring, but I thought it looked like finals footy. That's the way Collingwood play. Collingwood play that exact way.
Play as well.
They kick it backwards and across, and they just continually change the angle until it opens up. I agree. I think that one's a dumb one. Your other one was umpires need to call ball up faster. They need to ball the ball up faster.
Yep. So, to be honest, like, they can wait on the scrum if they want. I think generally speaking, umpires are blowing the whistle reasonably quick. Shout out to
it. So balling the ball up faster and not calling the ball up faster.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You watch different umpires and a bit of a vested interest. There's a St. Bede's boy from the year above me called Rob O'Gorman, who's an umpire running around. Who's part of the famed St. Bede's Umpires Academy. Famed. Yes, they've produced many umpires that are running around VFL and VAFA, and I'm not sure if they still run it, but yeah, there's quite a few, and Rob's gone to the top. But he's quite quick on the whistle. I really like that. He gets in and keeps basically, as soon as he realises the ball isn't going to come out, he just blows it, gets on with it. The thing that I don't like, and it's kind of like a byproduct of about the last 15 years, is that remember a few years ago there was the spate of umpire contact, and umpires getting hurt and all that. So they brought in the protected zone around the umpires, and then players are running into protected zones and giving free kicks away. So then they go, okay, well, the umpire's got to turn and check that he's clear behind him and indicate that that's where he's running out, and so everyone knows it's bloody clear and all this stuff. So if you have a look now, the ball up, umpire gets the ball, he walks in, he now goes and checks, who are my two ruckmen? And then he turns around and waves a line behind him, balls the ball up. That's taken 10 seconds. All of a sudden, everyone's all set up. Don't you worry about it. This ball's going nowhere for the next 5 minutes. If you take that away, you say you put the onus back on the players to protect the umpire. And what you say is the umpire always runs backwards towards the middle of the ground. And that's what they do. You watch the umpires in 99 of the ball up stoppages. They run backwards towards the centre of the ground. They don't run to the boundary, they run to the centre. So if you know that the umpire is always running in that direction, then you just keep it clear. Umpire balls it up, whistle goes, umpire picks up the ball, balls it straight up. Don't worry about finding out who the ruckmen are. One person from each side can go up, and if two people go up from one side, you blow a free kick and off it goes anyway. So, and then on top of that, I've got two big pet peeves, and we can get on to. I know you'll probably bring up my other one that I put in the chat group, but one of my biggest pet peeves is that, and it comes from my rugby background, that it's kind of I feel it's a disrespect to the umpires who run the game, and it's their game to run. You don't hand the ball back to the umpire. People just leave it on the ground, or they'll get up, they'll walk around, they'll go past six people and then hand it back to the umpire. They do it to waste time so their team can set up. So, I really feel that, people who are, in essence, time wasting to allow defense to be set up, they need to be punished. So, in that instance, I want to see players just get up, hand the ball back to the umpire, let him get on with it.
I think you're right. I think that if you're the person that has the ball, I think you either leave it where it lays, which is I think okay, because the umpire can pick the ball up from that spot and ball the ball directly up. There's no time lag. That's where the stoppage finished, so they can just pick it up and ball it straight up, as you said, run back towards the center. One thing on that ruck rule that you would need to work out is that there just needs that has to be another umpire interpretation, because you just have to watch for blocking of a ruckman. As in, if you've got two people going up, one ruckman can't just get in the way of another one and say, "Oh, I wasn't contesting, my teammate was, and I just happened to get in the way." If Max Gawn is around the area, he's definitely the ruckman. You just use common sense for that kind of stuff.
We rely too much on the umpires to make these decisions. Common sense. Apply common sense. It's simple. The umpires are there to adjudicate the game and keep the game moving. Yep. If there are two people, whether it's, boys, the ball's going up, whoever goes up, goes up. If three people go up, that's fine. Free kick the other way. If the person who is making a clear run to the ball gets blocked, free kick. This looking dumb and confusion and everything, I guarantee you give away 2 or 3 free kicks like that and it'll get sorted quickly. Because coaches, as Brad Scott, and I don't often agree with him wholeheartedly like I did on the weekend, coaches adapt. They adapt their game to the rules. If they are giving away free kicks for silly things like blocking, ruckman and this sort of stuff, you watch how quickly they just keep a clear space, just like it used to be, in the 90s. We always had 2 ruckmen going up in the 90s. No issue there. And I'm not saying that 90s football is better, and I'm not saying, let's go back to the golden era. I don't think that at all. Today we've got a new set of elite players to work with. And a lot of them are very high IQ football players, and they can figure this stuff out. We don't need to be babysitting them. And it's simple. If the rule's being breached, a free kick's paid, regardless of whether you had knowledge or not. Intent is irrespective. It's a breach.
Yeah, I think that one of the ways you could manage it as well is similar to the centre circle, where you just say at all stoppages around the ground, the players have to leave 5 metres around the area that the ball is balled up until the ruckmen have played at it. So that you don't just have 6 or 7 people standing at their feet and just repeat stoppage by the ruckman hitting at their own feet. is actually
Well,
just everyone clears out except for the rucks who come in. If no one comes in, that's fine. A player can come in from the side. There just has to be only two people competing. It makes it super obvious when it's say a Grundy or someone hasn't been able to get into a stoppage that he's not going up because he's not there.
well, I think
But if there's two,
the only issue with that
yeah, go.
is that if you're going to try and move the ball faster, you don't care about play. If players are still on the ground, you throw it up and off you go. And
Yeah,
it's the same way with clearing fights. Like, you know, you look at the weekend, Heath Shaw got a hit out to advantage as he did in roaming heater, as he liked to tell Big Big Sausage, I should say. And you know, that was one of the best things I've seen an umpire do on an AFL field when people are blowing up and there's scuffle and everything. The umpire just said, stuff it, threw the ball up. No one went up in the ruck except Heath Shaw. He hits it. GWS clear the ball. And guess what? That fight was over about 3 seconds later.
yeah. I think that, like as you said, you can use common sense. If it's in the middle of the ground, like anywhere in between, really outside of 30 meters at either team's end, um, and the players are still on the ground and you've got control of the ball as the umpire, you can just take one or two steps
Yep.
in towards the corridor and throw the ball up. Like, it doesn't have to be on their heads.
Absolutely.
Just create space and start getting the ball moving.
Yep.
Now, the other rule, as I said, that was introduced by you, which we haven't talked about yet, was the introduction of a 25-meter penalty, which I really like. I think that the ability to have a discretion between what's a 50-meter penalty and what's a 25 is huge, because it just gives the umpire the ability to blow the whistle quicker when people are causing trouble for no good reason, like as in they're deliberately scuffling on the ground, maybe not punching and stuff like that, but someone's being jammed into the ground by their jumper.
Yep.
You're just 25. Like, this doesn't have to be 50. Just get the ball moving. 25 meters. Get off him now. If you don't get off, when you're asked, if you start complaining and you're sitting on them, straddling them, not letting them get up, which you see so many people do, 50. Sorry, you know the rules. Get off him.
But it's even further to
introduces
that.
escalation. Yeah, go.
Yeah. So it's further than that. It's just, you know, how many times, like in today's day and age, a 50 it's a bit. I'm trying to think of a good. It's a bit like in golf, like, you know, all the courses, the famous courses, were done. You know, some of them a couple of 100 years ago, like St Andrews, or you know, the more recent ones, you know, which are still probably 100 years old, like Augusta and stuff, and all these wonderful golf courses. But the thing is technology improves, and it's the same with our AFL players. Our AFL players, you know, they evolve. They're better and better and better, and that's evolution. And so with golf technology, they're now talking about, well, you know, how do we stop this explosion of huge drivers? You know, you've got all these guys, you know, Bubba Watson and Dustin Johnson, who just absolutely punch the ball a country mile. And all of a sudden, you know, they can pretty much play a par five with a driver and a 5-iron, and they're on the green in two. Or, you know, a par four, they can be laying up for a putt off the tee and stuff. And, you know, it kind of comes back to the same thing here. Like a 50-meter penalty when it was brought in, like, as it used to be 15, and then it got
Yeah,
increased to 50. But a 50-meter penalty, so someone runs into the protected zone, you know, the 10-meter protected zone, and they
yeah,
give away a 50 for that. Like, that is a huge penalty for something that 9 times out of 10 is or probably 99 times out of 100 is an innocent mistake. That's a huge penalty to pay.
yeah,
Whereas, you know, it's adjudicated the same way as someone who hits someone late in a
yeah,
marking contest. So, you know, they're two very clearly different situations. And, you know, like you said, that discretionary ability of the umpire to go, this is a minor infringement, you know, let's just move it. You know, there's a penalty there, let's move it. And then, you know, obviously have the ability to escalate. The other one around this that I really want to see, and this is something they can bring in this weekend, is this garbage around players who, you know, they've given away a free kick and then they just stand just in front of the ball, so the player
yeah,
can't quite get it. And look, Gary Ablett Jr. did it on the weekend, and I just about hit my TV. Like I could not believe the umpire let him get away with that much, because it got to the point where he was actually moving in front of the ball, deliberately blocking. And I went back and I'm a bit obsessive. I went back and watched it. It cost 4 seconds, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but in those 4 seconds, you could watch in the background, and 3 lines of Geelong players were able to run past. Or maybe it was 2 lines, but there was 3 players.
At the very least, 4 seconds of 70% speed running means that your players have gained 20 metres minimum.
Yep.
20 to 30 metres, so that they've just moved a whole line of people up, as you said, and restructured behind the ball. I agree. Like things like that, you're standing in front of the ball. You should be required to give it back. Like as in, if you're close and you're deliberately being a dick, effectively.
Yeah. But it's within the rules. That's the argument.
Yeah. I know.
And it's funny because so many players do it, and it drives us all nuts. And I would just love to see them say, you know what, 50. Well, not 50. I'd love them to say 25, but we can't. So let's call it a 50. All of a sudden, that free kick in the centre circle is now someone lining up for goal. Do you reckon Gary Ablett's doing that again? No, I don't think he is. And that's the thing. Yeah. Like we talk, and it's probably a good point. Like punitive punishment on the behaviours you don't want to see. So the behaviour we don't want to see is we don't want to see the game slowed down. So therefore, any intent that slows the game down should be punished in some way.
And go.
I was going to say it's a bit about it. It's all right. It's a bit like the Zach Merritt hit on Silvani, on Jack Silvani, and Zach Merritt hit on Jack Silvani.
Yeah.
You sit there and you go, you see Mitch Robinson, even Jack Silvani came out and said it, goes, don't really want to see someone get suspended for something that happens, 30 times in a game. Look, I kind of, it's a bit like, to me, it's a bit like the people who said, with Andrew Gaff, he didn't mean to, break Brayshaw's jaw. Brayshaw kind of slipped and it's like, well, hang on, step back. If you watch the footage, Merritt swings an arm, rotates his wrist so his knuckles, like you watch it, he actually rotates his wrist so his knuckles make contact with Silvani, the same way I'm sure he's done 100 times. And this time it just happened to break someone's rib. You know what? Don't close the fist. Leave it open.
Don't swing the arm into the back. Don't
punch people.
That's what I mean. Like you want to take this to the full extent of that thought process. It's the thing that you want to rule out isn't people getting rubbed out for whacking people in the back after they've disposed of the ball. It's people whacking people in the back after they've disposed of the ball. There's no need. It's not about the toughness of footy. Everything hitting people after they've released the ball when they're unprotected in the back.
Yeah, he hadn't actually made the disposal, but that. Yeah.
He was in the process of making a disposal. Whacking him in the back was not going to affect the disposal. If anything, it should be a push in the back.
Yeah, but it's like I've got no problem with swinging the arm to put him off, but there's no reason to close the fist. There's no reason to rotate the hand so that you make contact with the knuckles, the hardest part of your hand. Do it with an open hand. It's going to have.
I agree. Do it like Will Gould in the video that we put him together in the off season. Guy got past him and was about to release the ball. Just hit him with a flat arm, just a flat arm straight across the chest, which did enough to impact the kick and couldn't. I can't imagine being hit with somebody's like the soft part of their elbow and forearm could ever hurt as much as a knuckle or like a clean punch. Like it wasn't even a punch; he was just sort of holding his arm out there to make sure, and that happens all the time in footy. But you're right. What we're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate bad actions, not bad results.
Yeah.
So eliminate bad actions. One other thing just before, because I'm going to wrap up in a second. When we're talking about free kicks, I think the 25-metre penalty also just means that the umpires can be faster on infringements. So, as you said, not allowing people to stand up, that's a 25-metre penalty. One of the other ones that's been pissing me off is when the umpire has to call players back to the 9, like as in someone's kicked the ball sideways into the pocket and then the player has gone and run straight to the boundary where the mark was taken rather than at the 9-metre mark, which is where they're allowed to go to.
Mm.
And the umpire says, go back to the 9, and everyone can hear it. Like, the stadiums are empty, and the player refuses to because they know they're not going to get a free kick called against them. Gary Ablett did that again as well on the weekends. He just went up to the 4 and defended at the 4 for about 5 seconds before he finally went back to the 9. Yeah, I think the guy ended up playing on, and he almost got tackled because he ended up playing on when Gary Ablett was at the 4, and the umpire called play on rather than calling you're over the mark, Gary.
But it's even like, you know, people having snapshots from the boundary line. It's like, you know, they don't, the 10 metres that they apply is not 10 metres yet. You know, bloke in the middle of the ground runs 15 metres away and he gets blown for an infringement. Like, anyway. I mean, that's where interpretation sucks because it's up to the umpire's interpretation. Before we wrap up, there was a couple of extra rules which I'm not sure if they're on your list, but I heard
they're not.
Jared Healy talk about them, and one was zones. So, you know, two people from each team inside each key 50 at all times. I mean, it's something that's in the TAC Cup or NAB League or whatever. I think it's NAB League now. Look, I just, to me, for a professional game like AFL, we need having zones is just no. Like,
I think it's a no. That's a no for me as well.
Yeah.
That completely changes the dynamic of the game.
Yeah.
You're not trying to completely change the dynamic of the game. You're trying, like, the fundamental structures and rules in which the game is played. That's not what, like, you know, starting 6-6-6. That's not fundamentally changing the game. It's how we originally intended the game to be set up. It's just making sure that we're doing that. Zones is different. Zones, I would hate to see like a forward leading out at a kick. Like, as in, you know, this happens in practice, 2 are in there, and then they try to kick a release ball. Are you not allowed to leave? Like, you're the only 2 in there. Am I allowed to step outside 50 to pick up the ball to bring it back inside 50, or do I have to wait till my team gets down there? Like, it's not well thought through.
No. I mean, hang on. I'm just trying to bring up the full list from the other night. So they want to. He said it was. I should have had this up. Effectively, what he was saying, like, so he said increase the distance for the kick, which I think you and I are on.
It's a no-brainer. Yep.
Hang on, here we go. So here we go. They've said 10. Here's the article. So it's 10.
Yeah, but we know you're at the article.
Yeah. 10 changes. So stricter prior opportunity, which we've spoken about. Reduced interchange rotations. So the idea is that more fatigue will, encourage teams to be, will basically mean that, you know, teams are less able to do full team defense. Look, they could, with interchanges, you can absolutely start stripping them back. I think it was Mick Malthouse a few years ago was pretty keen on 60. I reckon trial it. I don't see an issue. In a lot of cases, the the interchanges, you know, back in, I think it was 2002 grand final, Brisbane had 32 interchanges for the game. And, you know, I'm not saying that's the best way. I'm just saying, you know, we have been in, you know, it was that modern evolution to have like constant hard running that brought in this, you know, high interchange game that's led to this huge pressure. So, I mean, I'm not against if you want to bring the interchange cap down. I mean, a lot of sports have interchange caps. Soccer, rugby, both rugbies have interchange caps. I don't see an issue with it. Bring it down. Start at, you know, it's at 90 at the moment. I think teams average about 84 a year. over the year. So I reckon you could probably bring it down to 70 or 60 pretty comfortably as a start. They've got starting positions, which we've spoken about. 16 aside, that was floated by Brad Scott. 16 or 14 aside. Yeah, it's a no from me. Look, I think it opens up space, and you would definitely get a faster moving game. But I don't think it's football, and it would be like what rugby league is to rugby union, 2 players less.
Well, if you want to just make it fast, why not take that again to the full extension of that thought? Why not have 8 aside? Why not one aside? Why not just a ruckman? and it's effectively a running race. It's whoever can get the ball first and run past the other people and kick a goal, and then it goes back to the center. It's like, I agree. I understand where they're coming from, but I never think football, when it's being played well, looks bad.
No.
I think that the rolling mass looks bad, and I think that they can fix that with other tweaks to the existing rule structure.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want faster play of the footy, there's a good one here, which was, I think it's Lee Montagna by the looks of it, 3 seconds then play on. After you take a mark, look, that's not a bad one. You do.
Just when you're back from your mark, I think that if you opt not to go back, because there are some people that decide to stand on the spot and have a quick look before anyone mans the mark. And if that's true, then 3 seconds, that's fine.
Yep.
You've had enough time to make a decision. You don't get to make it twice. But if you hammer back off the mark, then it can be 3 seconds from when you're back.
Yep.
Just once you've taken your stop. And I like that one, because it means that you don't have that everyone over. No, I want more. I want more people over on that wing. More, and then you just bomb it high and long.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And then probably the only other one was last touch out of bounds.
Well, sneak it in.
Last touch out of bounds. No, it's a no.
No. It's a no. I'm glad that we finished on that note. I do have to wrap up right now. But thanks again for joining with me, mate. I knew that. Look, I actually said this would probably be a shorter podcast, but I knew that we'd get an hour out of talking about rule changes, because it's not an area that needs that much attention, but it's just an area that could improve the game so much so quickly.
Yeah. If you strip out a lot of the grey, the interpretation, you'll find the game moves quicker, I think, and that's really what we're saying. Incorrect disposal. Prior opportunity is 1-2. That's prior opportunity. Take a lot of the grey and interpretation out, and just tell umpires, get that ball in the air, get the play moving. Don't care if the player's on the ground. Make sure there's 2 people go up. I don't care if it's a guy who's 5'10" or 6'8". Couldn't care less.
We're with you, mate. I've got to go. I love you, and thanks again for listening, everyone. Thanks to AustralianFootballCoach.com. Appreciate the support, and thanks to everyone again for listening.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks, John, and we'll chat to you soon. All right, see ya.
Bye.
If you constantly worry that the worst is going to happen, you're not alone. 1 in 4 Australians will experience anxiety. Know when anxiety is talking. Visit Beyond Blue to start a life beyond anxiety.